questions?
I have one for Senator Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Some critics of the ban say that this is kind of a non-issue. Did y'all find that these surgeries were happening in Tennessee, or is this more of a preventative measure?
No, these procedures, both surgical and medicinal, were taking place in Tennessee. And in fact, one of the things that propelled us to take action with this legislation was some undercover reporting from another media outlet that disclosed that there's a prominent medical facility right here in Tennessee that in fact had a dedicated clinic for the purposes of pediatric transgender reassignment surgeries and prescribing medicines. To their credit, that institution did stop those once we introduced this legislation. We're grateful for that. We don't know how many. We contemplated that, but we know it's happening. Both the surgeries as well as kids that are being prescribed these very harmful medications. So our position is, whether it's 1 or 1 million, the Tennessee General Assembly needs to step up and protect kids.
And I'm just gonna add, the medicine that was being used for transitioning is not FDA approved for transitioning.
Correct.
That was a key component, that it was being used off-label.
I have another question for you, Senator. If there are doctors who are performing these sorts of things, are there things that you guys want going forward to kind of tell them, like, hey, you gotta lay off, you're gonna have them stop practicing? What's kind of the thing going forward?
Sure. Well, let me say a couple of things about that. I always push back when I hear it reported that we banned care. We banned transgender care. We didn't ban care. What we did is we created a prohibited medical practice. We all acknowledge that adolescence and puberty can be a difficult time for some kids, some more so than others. We recognize that, and there are issues with their body and being comfortable in the body that God gave them. We don't dispute that. These kids need to be loved, they need to be encouraged, and they need to have access to the appropriate mental health treatment that they need, and get them through this rough patch. And then in Tennessee, at the age of 18, you have reached age of majority. If you wish to pursue something, then you can certainly do so. This legislation is specifically for kids. But our legislation did create a prohibited medical practice. It could result in a physician losing their right to practice in Tennessee, and then they can also face civil and criminal penalties for that.
When working on the bill, did you speak with leaders from, I guess this can be for anybody, did you guys speak with leaders from other states who shared similar wants for their state as far as a ban like this?
Because I don't know.
We did. In fact, that's a very common practice. When we decide we want to tackle a complex issue, we certainly look to other states. We're part of various organizations that share best practices among states, and we did that. Interestingly, and it's relevant to what's happening with the Supreme Court, in 21-22, there were some other states who passed variations of this legislation, and those laws were immediately enjoined and not allowed to go into effect. And it's why we work so closely with our Attorney General and our legal team to craft the legislation that we did. Ours is unique, and our law that we passed is the first to be successfully defended in the courts. I think that's one reason the Supreme Court used our law as the test case. So the ramifications of this and the significance, certainly it's important for Tennessee and protecting Tennessee kids, but at the end of the day, this will set the standard for the entire country. And as I believe Dr. Briggs said, Senator Briggs said, we're up to 25 or 26 states now who have passed similar laws.
So is this really the legal argument more about states' rights, more about what the Supreme Court decided on overturning Roe v. Wade? Not that they overturned it for the entire country, but they gave it back to the states. Is that what this case and this bill really comes down to?
I mean, you're there.
Yeah, I don't want to
One of the
hog that.
supporters,
That's right.
we're patting him on the back.
I don't want to hog the microphone here, but absolutely, this is fundamentally, in addition to the good public policy of protecting kids, this is about federalism and states' rights. And you brought up the Dobbs decision, and certainly that is a great example of the Supreme Court reversing prior bad precedent, in my view, with Roe, and remanding issues like this back to the states. And if you listen to the arguments and the questions from the Supreme Court justices, there were a number about that. Justice Kavanaugh asked specifically, why should we constitutionalize this? And that was a way of him asking, what's the role of the court here? This science is unsettled. These treatments are relatively new, at least in the United States. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of disagreement within the medical community. So absolutely, it should be the right of states to step in and regulate these medical practices, which is what we did. Another example, if you listen to the arguments, the plaintiffs in the case who are challenging our law brought up West Virginia, because West Virginia passed a law that says these procedures can take place, but you got to jump through some additional hoops. And that's fine. If the people of West Virginia believe that's what's right for their state and their community, so be it. We did not. We felt like these procedures needed to be banned in order to protect kids. So it's a great question. I want to be clear. What is at stake before the United States Supreme Court is the right of states to make these decisions as they see fit.
Right.
As the bill was going through, I serve on the health committee, the Senate Health Committee, and so in that row, you look at the science, you look at the effects on kids, you look at other states, you look at other data, to when you're voting on it. You don't just do a knee-jerk reaction. And the data was there to vote for Senate Bill 1 to protect these kids. We followed the science, and that's how we voted.
Any other questions?
I do have one. It's unrelated to the bill. This week was a busy week for you guys. Obviously, you did have this bill go through, but also Senator Ken Yeager was also arrested. What is the procedure going forward with that?
So let me first of all say Ken is a dear friend. He's a respected member of our body. We're saddened by what took place a couple of days ago. As he has stated publicly, he is in full cooperation with law enforcement officials. We don't feel like it's appropriate to comment at this point until he's had an opportunity to say something further other than what he has said. But I do want to be very clear, he's made it clear that he is fully cooperating with law enforcement.
Anything else? All righty, guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.